Hello everyone. Another quick video today. This is going to be very short. This is to bring attention to a couple of videos that Razorblade Candy has been mentioning, and if you haven't subscribed to his channel already, please do. He's been making some very good videos, and he has been tackling, our favorite subject that just apparently doesn't seem to go away in the manosphere. He's been tackling the subject of whether or not, just limiting government is an answer to feminism. And in his last video, I don't remember the title, something along the lines of ideological purification. It's up on his channel. I'll put a link to that in the description box. In his last video, there was a comment that he highlighted on his video that I'm not going to include here. You can watch the video and see it for yourself. It's a screen cap where it was insinuated that men going their own way are fighting a unwinnable battle, a uphill battle against human nature, and he sarcastically stated that if we're going to fight against human nature, or if we're going to try to approach things from a MGTOW perspective, then we might as well just try to tackle gravity next, because we're fighting against biological ingrained human nature. And this person was somebody that was, I believe, was advocating for limited government being the correct approach. And even if he wasn't, I still want to address that position in this video. And again, this is going to be very short, but I think that the question that I want to ask some of these people who make this, in my opinion, incorrect assertion that, for example, what MGTOW is trying to do is to fight human nature, and with no chance of success, according to them, is whether or not they believe that abolishing or limiting government is any less of a futile endeavor as they claim ours to be. And, I'm not even saying this really in a disrespectful manner. I honestly am interested in the answer to this, because from my perspective, it's readily apparent, but maybe I haven't communicated my response to this thoroughly enough, so I'm going to give it another try here. I'm simply posing this question in hopes that someone will give an answer I find suitable or convincing. But again, my question is, how is a fight against government, that is limiting or abolishing it, not a fight against human nature as well? Are we not a product of a species that spent the majority of its existence hunting and gathering in small tribal groups that were essentially roving governments that created their own rules and regulations that had to be adhered to rigidly, with the consequence of deviating from them potentially resulting in the death of members of the tribe or the entire tribe itself? And so now, in relatively recent history, when we developed agriculture and we did away with our hunter-gatherer ways and set up city-states, did we not again just reinforce my claim that as a species, what we like to do is to set up rules and regulations that maximize human survival that very often run contrary to the desires of the individual? Can you name one successful civilization in history that hasn't had some form of government? Is it not more productive and reasonable to see government much like the way I see it, which is like a firearm, for example? It can be used for a productive or destructive means. And essentially the body of the government, the political intelligentsia, is what decides that, and the people who elect them are what decide that. Now, I've seen some of these people say things like, well, and they throw these random numbers out there. If we just shrink the government to a 10% rate of taxation or some other arbitrary figure, then we'd be much better off. And you know what? Perhaps we would. I don't know, frankly, because, it's never existed. But one of the videos that I watched from YouTuber Arini, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and I don't really watch his channel too much, so I don't know what the body of his work is representative of, but YouTuber Arini, he made mention of a concept that I found very interesting called unobtainium. And I found it a better way of explaining the dilemma I've mentioned here, the paradox of small government, or those wishing for small government, or those wishing to do away with misandry and feminism via small government. He posted this video explaining that making this 10% statement, or just saying that we need to limit the state or limit the government, is a lot like saying we would solve our energy crisis if we achieved cold fusion. The devil, of course, is in the details. And how exactly do you plan to achieve this cold fusion? He described it better. That's the example I use, but he described it better than this example simply by putting forth the engineering concept of unobtainium. That is, when engineers describe a material that as of yet does not exist, that has the qualities or the tensile strength or the atomic structure or whatever qualities that would make it ideal for what you want to use it for, if it existed. So I think that saying that we should limit government, for example, at this juncture, is just an announcement of your desire for unobtainium. It's your desire for cold fusion. And meanwhile, MGTOW and MRAs, such as myself, are embracing a multi-pronged attack. So to be clear, we're not rejecting a small government approach to misandry or gynocentrism. We're not rejecting it in the slightest. In fact, we're welcoming it. Granted that you actually start getting to work on it instead of insisting that every last MGTOW or MRA get on board with you before you can even start laying the groundwork or the foundation. So if you think limiting government is the answer, well, good. Go forth and limit government. But for some in the manosphere, that is not a realistic solution to the problem, since many may perceive it as inefficient, since it relies on politicians to get it done, which ironically is asking government to step in and get it done for you. And the politicians that these people recommend, aren't the most savory characters ever to grace political office. Right? Most of these people that are being recommended and put forth are just neocons, essentially. And what I've noticed about these people is that this kind of knee-jerk aversion to government, it's very often quite selective, and there's a lot of double-think going on here in order to reach this conclusion. Now, one of these people attempted to minimize my focusing on Phyllis Schlafly's opposition to the Equal Rights Amendment by saying that an equal rights amendment enshrined in the Constitution would be used much in the same way as Title X would be used. So he was making the claim that the feminists would never allow government to use the Equal Rights Amendment in a way that actually enforced equality between the genders. And so, I couldn't help thinking, and this is what I want to get away from, this belief that feminists are this untouchable, omnipotent branch of American politics or Western politics that is untouchable. Because when they made that claim, I couldn't help but wonder, well, if the feminists had this level of power and political clout over the actions of government, then what makes you think that you'll be able to shrink government without them stopping you when you know that they use the government for their gravy train, essentially? Is government only an effective tool for enforcing equality when it benefits your small government agenda? And oppositely, for those of you that think using government to acquire equal treatment under the law for men, right? We're talking about things like access to domestic violence shelters, equal healthcare opportunities, equal research into prostate cancer, all of the facets of government that are treating men unequally right now. If you think that those can be rectified within the governmental system, using the government that we've set up, the political structure that we have in place. If you believe that that's the way forward, well, go forth. Just like I've told the libertarians, go forth. But you can't blame the libertarians for looking at you and essentially thinking that you're running a fool's errand, right? So both of these camps essentially have the same mission statement. Go forth and try to get it done without expecting the other side to explicitly co-sign your cause. And I think that's a much more productive way to approach the problems of misandry. Again, in this, we expose misandry to a multi-pronged attack in which the best method will naturally make itself apparent. Ironically, I think this is the best way to approach it since it comes from a free market perspective. May the best approach win. If your approach really is that much better, then people will adopt it all on their own, no? Anyway, that's all I have to say for now. Please check out Razorblade Candy's videos. Please subscribe to Spetsnets if you haven't already. Please subscribe to Stardust's new channel, Thinking Ape TV, if you haven't already. All of these channels are included in my preferred channels on my YouTube page. So check those out if you haven't already. And thanks for listening.